Hey guys, it's Paradise and we've been playing a bunch of Grey Zone Warfare, including the beta before the early access launch. We've been having so much fun with this game, and since there is a lot to learn and it doesn't really tell you everything, we wanted to wrap together all of the tips and beginner's stuff that we wish we knew sooner before starting. So basically, if you're a beginner, we've got you covered here. Make sure to drop a like and click subscribe below to show support if we help you out, and comment any tips that you figured out so we can all learn the latest tricks together. Now I don't want to waste your time, so let's kick it off with what this game is about and what you can expect to be doing once you jump in. The first thing to note is that this is a tactical FPS PvEvP extraction game. This means you should expect to not solely engage other players or enemy AI, but instead both, and that being said, a majority of your engagements, especially early on, will usually be against enemy AI as you go about completing your first tasks, leveling up the vendors, and getting your first bags of loot to extract as you're learning the ropes of the game. As said, this is a more tactical FPS, so it's a bit more hardcore than other FPS games like COD or Battlefield. You will die very quickly, but the enemies will also die very quickly, and this does depend a bit on what gear you have and what gear they have, but most of the time headshots will be an instant kill and a couple body shots will usually down someone. When you first start the game, you'll make your character and then you have a very big choice to choose one of the three factions. This is very important as it determines where on the map you will deploy from and who you can actually play with. Additionally, you are not meant to kill other players within the faction you choose, even if you want their loot. Doing so will mean they can report you, so do this at your own risk. But when it comes to playing with other people, such as your friends, you need to make sure that you all pick the same faction so you can actually squad up together. So make sure when you and your friends buy the game that you actually talk about what faction you're going to pick, otherwise, well, you're kind of out of luck. As said before, this is an extraction shooter, so a large part of it is going out into the world and collecting loot or completing tasks to get loot. You can defeat enemies or other players and take their stuff, you can loot things in buildings or do quests to gather gear, weapons, ammo, items, and so on. Once you have adventured in the world and filled your bags with loot, you will then need to go back to your deployment base in order to stash the loot in your storage so you can keep it for later or sell it to vendors to get money to buy their stuff. Now, if you do die while you're out in the map, you will lose everything on your character. That means your guns, items, bags, helmet, and so on will be lost on your body on the floor where you die. But you do have a safe lockbox, and anything stored inside of this will actually be protected even if you do die. So you want to put your most valuable items in here as you go out on a quest or you bring loot back. Something really important to note is that if you do die, your body will stay on the ground with all of your loot on it wherever you fell. Of course, other players, if it was another player that killed you, will be able to go up to your body and take your stuff. So if it was a player that ended you, they're probably going to yoink all of your best gear. However, you can just respawn and try to run back to where you died and where your body is, as if an AI killed you, you will likely be able to recover it. It is extremely important to note that if you die a second time while trying to get back to your first body, your body will despawn when you die a second time because the body that you just died on will now be the body that you can go and retrieve. So you need to be very careful when returning to reclaim loot that you've lost. However, there's a great tip to know if you're playing with a friend. You can have your friend go up to your dead body and right-click and drop all of your stuff onto the floor. This means if you happen to die again on the way back to your body, the loot will remain on the floor instead of disappearing with the body. So this way you can hopefully keep some of your loot even if you're struggling to get back. Next, let's go over the basics before we jump into tasks and some more advanced stuff. One of the major elements of the game that you will need to get used to is the tab menu that includes the full map of the area, your character gear and details, the vendors, and your tasks. I'm going to explain each one, but firstly let's go over the character page as this is highly important to your gameplay. On the character page, you can see your gear from your helmet to protect you against headshots, to headphones that amplify sound so you can hear from further away, your primary weapon and your sidearm, but also your carrier such as your vest, which can also have plates in it to protect you from gunfire, your backpack, belt and pockets to store extra loot, and of course your safe lockbox that we mentioned before to protect loot even on death. You do also have a secondary weapon slot that you can carry on your back. When managing your loot, you can drag this around and rotate them by pressing R, which allows you to Tetris your inventory a bit better, and you can right-click things to access additional options, such as unloading or reloading ammo into magazines, and so on. Below this, you can see your important stat bars, such as your blood, which is basically like your HP, and even if this gets slightly low, it can be deadly. You have your weight that shows how much you can carry, but also hydration and energy, which will lower over time as you go out on runs, and you do need to eat and drink while out in the map to counter this. There's also intoxication and radiation, and these will go up if you encounter these things, but for now, let's just worry about the basics. Luckily, food and drink can be found as you're exploring, so keep an eye out for it and loot enemy bodies as you take them down. If you do, however, get hit, you should check the health tab to see which part of you got injured. If you're bleeding, you will probably need to use a bandage. If you have a headache, you may need to take a painkiller, and worser conditions will require other forms of medical items to cure. Keeping on top of your character's health will be vital to winning, as various conditions can give away your position to an enemy, such as if your character starts to cough, or other conditions that will actually impact your aim and can be much worse. The map tab actually shows you the entire map area, and you can zoom in to see specific names within the areas, which will help you with quests and their objectives. You can see other players' locations within your faction on the map. Your friendly squad members will also be squares, but they will be green. As you go out exploring the map, you will actually unlock new landing zones, which act as drop-off and pick-up points for calling in a helicopter to either leave or return to base. To leave your base, you want to open the map and click on the LZ closest to where you want to go, and then press Call Transport. This will start a timer whereby a helicopter will fly in to pick you and your squad up. Once you're on the helicopter, you will automatically fly to the LZ and it will automatically drop you off. If you then want to return back to base, you can click on your base and call a transport, and the nearest LZ to you will become a pickup point, so you need to head there before the timer to hop on the helicopter when it lands, which will take you back to your base. So luckily, you don't have to walk everywhere. But when it comes to shooting, reloading, and moving around, there's a few things that you need to know that will dramatically help your gameplay. When you're running, this will use stamina, and even if you have enough stamina, your character will get tired when you do this. So running in bursts is often better than just running around everywhere all the time. When you reload your gun, it will completely swap out the magazine with another one in your inventory, even if there's still ammo left in it. You can press the V key to check how much ammo is currently in your magazine in your gun, and you can press the B key to change the fire mode of your weapon if available between single shot and full auto. I advise using single shot as this is much more manageable over medium and long distances, and use full auto when fighting in really close quarters situations. A great thing to know is if you hold left Alt and press V with your gun in hand, you will do a full weapon check, which shows you your ammo count, your chamber, your fire mode, and your zeroing distance to tune your gun to your preference. And much like other games, pressing C will allow you to crouch, and you can press X to prone, or Z is the push to talk button if you have a mic. Using control and your scroll wheel allows you to set how low or high you crouch when you press C, so this is something pretty cool to adjust to your playstyle and environment. Just like in other games similar to this, you can customize your weapon, and in Grey Zone Warfare, it's a very in-depth system with a ton of different attachments, mounts, sights, and so on, and you can go really deep into this. Luckily, when dragging and dropping things, you can actually see which slots they go in, but this can get very complicated, so for now, just know that certain sights will require specific mounts attached first, such as ACOG sights, which are massively helpful if you can afford them. If you are struggling with your weapons and mags and ammo early on, I would definitely recommend picking up the AKs and SKSs from dead enemies in your first town near the base, as they have an abundance of ammo and mags for these weapons, as well as dropping weapons themselves, so by looting them, using their weapons, ammo and mags, it's a great way to avoid using up all your NATO rounds, and you can basically never run out while you're out questing in the early stages of the game. Now let's go over tasks, as this is a major focus of what you want to do when starting off to get additional money, gear, and increase your reputation with the vendors. Within the vendors tab, you can go to the tasks page next to their trade page. This lets you accept or hand in their quests. Once you have accepted a task, it will then go to the task tab at the very top, and here you can reread it when out in the field. Some tasks will have their grid locations on them, which are very helpful to know roughly where to go on the map. Later on though, they start to get less specific and instead give descriptions which can be harder to find. For example, the handshake vendor will give you a quest to find a crashed helicopter near a location. For us, it was south of a gas station. This actually meant it was in some trees nearby, the LZ south of that gas station, so the directions aren't exact and you may need to explore around the area a little bit. But if you are stuck on the Little Bird Down quest, find the LZ nearby the quest location and then look for a burnt out helicopter like this one in some woods nearby. After this, you need to find survivors, so explore nearby buildings with enemy AI in them, and then check the dead bodies of the crashed helicopter crew to complete this quest. All of these are roughly within the same grid area, so you shouldn't need to go too far away from the location. Another good example of a quest without a clear objective is the cache retrieval quest from Gunny. This has grid locations on it, but still requires you to find an interactable crate to store the locator, which you also need to claim before you leave deployment. So when you take tasks, you want to check your in-game messages, claim any required quest items to take with you, and for this specific quest, you need to find wooden crates with a red top like this one. Another good thing to note when doing tasks is that any quest items you pick up out in the field for a quest will actually disappear when you die. So if you do end up dying and going back to your body, you may need to repeat quest objectives where you gather items because they disappear on death. So now you know what Grey Warzone is and the beginner's tips to get you started. Again, share any tips that you figured out down below so we can all learn together as a community, and I hope we helped you out with this guide. Make sure to subscribe for more daily gaming videos, news, and guides.